Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. And when I say we, I mean just me today, guys. It's Emily, my co-host, has called out sick, and so we're going to let her rest and take the morning off, and it's just going to be me. So take it easy on me. I've never done this by myself before because I love partnering with other people, but hopefully you guys will have some great questions and some great comments, and we'll make it through. Also, we changed to Friday this week because my daughter's first day of school was on Wednesday, and I knew that wouldn't be a great day for me to deliver a webinar. However, it was actually the right move because of President Biden's remarks yesterday, which we will get into in just a second. So like I said, Emily Schlaudecker from Mineral was going to join me today, but she will be back next month, and hopefully she will get well soon. As you all probably know by now, we do record these webinars and post them on our website by the end of the day today. That's on our COVID-19 resource page at dominionpayroll.com. Then if you do have a question or a comment, and I hope that you do, please submit it using the Q&A function, not the chat. That way I can grab the questions after we stop recording today. Or if you don't feel like submitting your question in this format and you're more comfortable sending it directly to us via email, you can send it to questions@dominionpayroll.com, and that will route to either me or Tracy or somebody who can best answer your question. All right. So the labor market got some more news yesterday. You all probably have either heard Biden's press conference or have read about it, but he's essentially asking OSHA to draw up a emergency temporary standard that will require businesses with more than 100 employees to have to require their workers to be vaccinated, which is a big deal. Or they need to produce a negative test on a weekly basis. In the healthcare sector, CMS will require vaccinations for workers in most healthcare settings that receive Medicare or Medicaid reimbursement, including but not limited to hospitals, dialysis facilities, ambulatory surgical settings, and home health agencies. So that's another way that the government is sort of ensuring that these facilities have vaccinated staff at 100% or produce a negative test on a weekly basis. If you do not comply with the emergency temporary standard, you could be fined up to $14,000 for each violation. That is what I've heard so far. That's the only thing I've seen on the enforcement side. OSHA has yet to put out information about this on its website. It's brand new. I don't know if there's a deadline for private businesses to have a vaccinated workforce. So more on that. I suspect we will have another webinar on this next week or the week after as things unfold after the president's announcement yesterday. As such, Amazon, Kroger, and Walmart will now sell at-home coronavirus tests at cost. So that if you qualify for this, if you have more than 100 employees and must comply with this, you could purchase these at-home coronavirus tests or have your employees purchase them at those 3 retailers at the least. I'm not sure, there might be some other retailers that sign on at some point. And then an added wrinkle is that businesses are to offer paid leave for employees wishing to get vaccinated, as well as to recover from any side effects. And those would be physical health side effects. As you guys might heard, some people have reactions to the vaccine. It usually takes about a day for them to recover. So that's a big deal. And it's sort of unfolding. The ink is barely dry on this action. He also, I don't have it here, but he also mandated that federal employees now have to be vaccinated, and the negative test option is no longer an option. So that's something that also applies to people who work with the government in terms of government contractors and things and settings like that. So pretty big announcement. And it's, the president really is trying to get this vaccination numbers up, and this is one of the ways he's tackling it. So the labor market. So this will no doubt affect the labor market, which, as we all know, is in a very strange state right now. It's almost unprecedented. I'm not an economist, so I'm going to go ahead and say that at the top of this presentation, but it's just a strange, it's a strange dynamic. We've got unemployed, long-term unemployed numbers decreasing, but there's still 2.1 million people higher than February 2020. The August jobs report was much lower than expected. Only 235,000 jobs were created in August compared to 1.1 million in July and 962,000 in June, which is a pretty big drop. There might be a couple of factors that are contributing to that. August is typically a month when people are on vacation or taking some time off, but also it could be that's really when the Delta variant started to really make its mark here in the US. So like I said, I'm not an economist, but there are some factors that probably contributed to that drop, but it was lower than expected. The estimated jobs report in August was supposed to hover around 750,000. So that was lower than expected for everybody. There were job gains, though, in the professional and business services, transportation and warehousing, and related services like couriers and messengers, private education, manufacturing, and others. Retail did decline. Leisure and hospitality were flat, but overall were down by 1.7 million or 10% since February 2020. And then, as you all probably know, the demand for labor has put upward pressure on hourly wages. So if you're experiencing difficulty in finding people to staff your establishment, you're not alone. I've heard it anecdotally, and also the numbers show that businesses are having a hard time finding people to work. And when they do find them, they are asking for higher pay, more flexible hours, and some other accommodations. And then meanwhile, we're seeing 150,000 new COVID cases per day in the US. So kind of don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but these are the latest numbers in terms of the Bureau of Labor Statistics report that came out on September 3rd. We do have a question here about paid leave for employees getting vaccinated. Angela says, would all businesses need to offer paid leave for employees to get vaccinated or experience side effects? So, Angela, it's my understanding that the president's executive order, or that the OSHA temporary standard rather, will apply to businesses of 100 employees or more. But right now we're still under ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, which provided that businesses under 500 employees extend paid leave to employees who wanted to get the vaccine, and those wages would be reimbursed by tax credits, real-time tax credits. So the government essentially would be paying for that employee to take 2 hours to go get vaccinated or take a day to recover. That ARPA, that expires on September 30th, so just in a couple of weeks. I don't know yet if this new temporary standard is going to provide tax credits for those paid leaves, or if those will expire truly on September 30th. I'm not really sure how that's all going to intersect. Of course, I will let you all know. But if you have folks who need to get vaccinated, doing it before September 30th, and as far as I understand it now, means that you all would get real-time tax credits for that time, for that paid time off. So perhaps if you have more than 100 employees and are wishing to comply with the new OSHA temporary standard, pushing folks to get it done in September would benefit you financially with those tax credits, at least as it stands now. I'm not sure what's going to happen in terms of future guidance. Okay, so in the small business world, well, this first bullet is not specific to small businesses, but right now there are approximately 10 million open jobs in the US, which is 1 million more than there are unemployed people. 1/3 of small business owners say that they have had open positions that they are unable to fill for at least 3 months, which is double the level from a year ago, which again seems very counterintuitive, but this is what this particular poll found. And then 41% of these small business owners are experiencing rising labor costs, which obviously, as you all know, presents a pretty big issue for small businesses who don't have the resources that these major corporations have to raise wages, increase benefits. I'm sure you've read about Amazon, I believe, now is offering to pay for tuition, undergrad tuition for folks who they just really need people in their warehouses and delivering packages, and but they have the resources to do that, and small businesses most likely don't. And I'd love to hear from you all during this presentation today, or you can email us later about what you are doing to attract or accommodate your employees right now. Are you raising wages? Are you being flexible with hours? Are you doing none of the above? And we're going to do a poll here in a second, so you can chime in there too. So that's sort of just a very high level snapshot of what's going on in the business sector right now in terms of labor, and then specifically the effect on small businesses. I know a lot of you have shared with me that the costs for your supplies, that your operating costs have gone up as well, not just on the wage side, but on the purchasing side, operating side. Perhaps your rents have gone up, and so that puts you in a position where you're kind of squeezed on both ends. So nobody could have predicted this during this pandemic. It's just one more thing that we just could not have anticipated. So where are the candidates? And I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on this too, as you sort of from your perspective in your industry. But here are 3 theories. So some former employees have left the labor market altogether, whether they decided that they just weren't making enough before to justify working, so they're going to stay home with their kids. Perhaps they're too afraid to work because of COVID. Either they've experienced death of a family member or a close friend, or they are compromised or otherwise just afraid of catching the virus. Or maybe they decided to pursue something else. We had somebody leave Dominion Payroll because he always wanted to be a barber, and the pandemic sort of lit the fuse under his seize the day spark, and he said, you know what, I'm going to do something different. Receiving unemployment benefits or some other sort of passive income. A lot of the pandemic related unemployment benefits have expired, but certainly there's still unemployment benefits out there. And then there's other sorts of passive income. Perhaps they become a YouTube star. Perhaps they're mining cryptocurrency. I've spoken to people who are cobbling together all sorts of different streams of income, and so that they're not necessarily working traditional quote unquote jobs anymore. And then you have the career changers, which sort of probably overlaps with the first bullet here, but the folks that are saying, you know what, I've always wanted to go back to school, or I've always wanted to be an HR professional, or life is too short, I'm going to go open up that tiki bar I always wanted to open up down in Jamaica. Those are some things that I'm hearing as well. And that means that they're not going to come back to their original line of work. Okay, so as promised, here's a poll, and we have a small crowd today, but hopefully you guys will humor me and fill out this poll. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. Holler if you can't. Question is, are you fully staffed at the moment? Select the answer that most fits your current situation. I realize I might not have hit on all of the possible answers here, so there is an other. And if you answer other, please elaborate in the Q&A if you can. You can pick from yes, thankfully, all is well, to yes, but coverage is spotty due to vacations and quarantining, etc. We're almost there. We're almost staffed up, but we should be soon. Nope, not even close, which is the current front runner, by the way. And then other. And then the second question is, why do you think that is? We haven't really experienced a workforce reduction. Employees seem to be in the driver's seat, asking for more money, et cetera. Recruitment is slow but steady. We should be staffed up soon. We just can't find anyone to fill our open positions. We've adapted to the situation by reducing operating hours, et cetera. Okay, so just a couple more seconds, let you guys respond. And again, if you do respond other, please elaborate in the Q&A if you don't mind. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Going once, going twice. And share the results here. Hopefully you guys can see this. Okay, so we've got about 5% who say that they're fully staffed and all is well. Another 5% say yes, but coverage is spotty due to quarantining and absenteeism and vacations. 21% say almost there, should be soon. It's great. And then 68% of you say, nope, not even close. And then question 2, why do you think that is? 5% say we haven't really experienced a workforce reduction during the pandemic, so that's great. Another 5% say employees seem to be in the driver's seat. They're asking for more money, more flexible hours, etc. 21% of you say recruitment is slow but steady. We should be staffed up soon. That's great. And then 68% of you say we just can't find anyone to fill our open positions, either no applicants, underqualified applicants, and/or we can't afford this new batch of candidates. Okay, well, thank you so much for participating. And I'm really sorry to hear about the majority of you are having such trouble. Nobody answered, we've adapted to the situation, and nobody answered other. So that's really interesting to me, and that's what I've been hearing and reading about. I'm not sure, I'm sure you all represent a variety of different sectors and industries, and I know this pandemic has affected different industries differently. So well, hopefully today we can help get you at least a couple suggestions. We've got a comment here from Jamie saying, we are adapting to situations with adjustment of operating hours, but that is only temporary. Gotcha, Jamie. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of, especially in the retail and hospitality space, restaurants, the hours now have been adjusted. And a lot of, my favorite restaurant, is now closed 2 nights a week instead of just 1. And it's because of staffing. But Jamie points out it does cause a loss in sales. So there's the rub, right? You guys are having to make these hard choices between revenue and staffing and costs. And that's unfortunate, particularly because the demand came skyrocketing back in most places this summer. Okay, so I can't solve the economic imbalance on this webinar. I wish I could. We'll have to see what happens with the Federal Reserve, with this new temporary standard from OSHA, with the COVID cases here in the fall. We know there are a lot of things at play that will affect this labor market for certain. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But I can offer some HR focused suggestions to elevate morale and ensure that your organization is a great place to work. And then these, of course, are general. They might not be specific to your situation, but I'm always happy to help talk through some strategies with you one-on-one if if this is not as helpful as it could be. But when you have people in place, whether they've been around throughout the pandemic or they're brand new, everything's been sort of shaken up. And so I think it might, if you haven't done so already, it'd be beneficial for you to take a step back, circle the wagons, and communicate the future of the company and how the employees fit into it. Has your vision changed due to the pandemic, or does it remain the same? Educate them about the business of your business and how the pandemic has impacted it. Create stakeholders rather than employees. So if you run a manufacturing company and you are experiencing some real severe barriers to production because of supply chain issues or logistics or things that the domino effect of this pandemic has had on the global movement of goods and services, communicate that with your employees. If it takes now twice as long to get widgets, then let them know, and let them know, why that is, and, give them an appropriate amount of information. You don't have to open your books to them, but just keep them in the loop about where you're going and how you expect to get there. Secondly, and related, communicate your pandemic policies very clearly and consistently. Are you allowing remote work? If so, who is excluded from that, if anybody? What is your mask policy? What's your vaccine policy, which might be changed in light of yesterday's announcement? Are you reconfiguring your physical space? Are you changing your working hours or your operating hours or your staffing structure? Are there changes to your paid time off rules? And what happens if an employee has a positive case or known exposure? So getting everybody on the same page across your different offices and locations, and perhaps your policies are different for front of the house staff versus back office staff, et cetera. Make sure you communicate those with current people and with new hires. And I'm pretty sure that applicants, for the most part, are asking these questions. So even during the recruitment phase, during the interviews, have the answers to these questions ready. And that will signal that you are taking things seriously. This is a company that cares about its employees, also is compliant with current guidance, and is, obviously these things can change and hopefully will change in the future, but this is the current policy. And then number 3 is sort of decide if you as a company is going to take a carrot or a stick approach when it comes to attracting and retaining employees. I'm sure you've read in the news, and maybe you're doing it yourself, that a lot of people are offering financial incentives, flexible hours, other types of benefits. Or will you go in the opposite direction and say, you know what, we don't have the financial resources to raise wages or offer benefits or more flexible hours. However, this is a great place to work. Here's our vision. Working here, we're a family. Working here is going to be mutually beneficial, et cetera. And I think that could go a long way. Now that you'll still have people who'll say, you know what, it's just about the money for me. And if you can't accommodate that, then you'll have to keep looking. But it just depends on what makes sense for your team and your business. If you can offer some carrots and be flexible and make some adjustments, if that works for your business, then now might be the time to explore that. And it could be temporary. And again, communicate that to your employees. I know Microsoft just went 100% remote indefinitely. They weren't even willing to put a deadline on it because we're not really sure how this pandemic is going to go this fall and winter. But they were transparent about the fact that eventually, hopefully, they're going to be able to change that policy. So I think as long as you communicate with your employees, whether you offer carrot or stick, and be consistent when you apply the carrot or the stick, I think that that's a fair approach to take. Let's see, Jamie has a question. Does the new mandate apply to employees working from home and do not come into the office? Jamie's referring to the new OSHA temporary standard requiring businesses to have a fully vaccinated workforce. I don't think so. I don't think it applies to people who work from home, and that they truly need to work from home, not people who work from home 4 days a week and come into the office one day. I haven't seen that written explicitly somewhere, but OSHA hasn't released its actual temporary standard yet on this. So I'm assuming they will address that in the standard itself or in the, what I'm sure will be a lengthy FAQ page when they do get that up. So stay tuned. Right now, I don't think it would be required for anyone who works 100% from home. But if that person were to attend a company holiday party or a workshop or some sort of company sponsored event, I would think you'd be more in compliance if you were to request a negative test to be produced before they attend. Not simply just to mask up, but to produce a negative test. Okay, so some other considerations, if you have the time and the bandwidth, is to go ahead and dust off and update performance evaluation programs, employee handbooks, and other documents that may have fallen by the wayside during this pandemic, safety manuals. If you have any legally binding contracts or anything like that, have them reviewed. This is good practice to do anyway, at least once a year, just because these are important tools to have, but also it outwardly signals to your team that you have expectations, performance expectations of them. You have a structure, you have policies in place. It's not just about COVID. Certainly COVID policies are very important right now, but you have other types of policies that are that you are expecting them to read and to comply with. And also that employee handbook is a really important signal of your promise to them, right? It outlines their benefits, the benefits they're providing to them, their vacation and sick your vacation and sick policies, any other types of benefits like that. And also your commitment to a harassment-free workplace, a workplace that's safe and healthy and productive. So it's a two-way street. The document's really important for both the employer and the employee. So if you have one and you haven't looked at it in a while, it might be time to update it. The second one here, probably if you don't have one already, it might be a great time to incorporate an HR professional into the mix. And that could be, obviously a full-time person might be beyond your scope right now, but there are lots of options out there. This is not just a shameless plug for our services here at Dominion Payroll, but there are lots of great, in addition to us, lots of great professionals out there who can help you on an advisory basis, a fractional basis, consulting basis, and you can get them for fairly decent rates. Depends on sort of the scope of what you need and how large your company is, but that you might find pretty helpful. That also will insulate you, the owner or management, from some things if you have somebody to sort of make sure that you're in compliance and make sure the messaging to your employees is the right messaging. And then the third consideration on this slide is to brush up on your recruiting tactics. Like I said earlier, I expect that applicants these days, in addition to asking for more money, are going to be asking about what your COVID policies are. And you might have, and that might come from a variety of backgrounds. You might have somebody who's very risk averse and is more attracted to a company that is 100% has a mandatory vaccine and mask policy, or you might have somebody on the total opposite end of the spectrum who doesn't want to work at one of those places. So be transparent about those work policies, about any sort of pandemic policies up front. If somebody wants to work remotely and you really don't like that for your culture, hear them out, I would recommend, and ask them, what's the reason why you can't come into work, and truly ask yourself, if this is a great candidate and they would like to work from home, what's the hill you're going to die on here? If this is a great person and a great fit and everything else being equal and the remote work is the sticking point, then you might want to consider allowing that accommodation. Of course, you might get pushback from your other employees, so you're going to have to plan on how you're going to deal with that. But to me, unless the remote work would really be detrimental to your business, to your bottom line, to your culture, then I would think about making an accommodation there. Okay, some reminders about masks and vax. Now, yesterday's announcement might change some of this, but for now, this is what the current guidance is. So I mentioned earlier the American Rescue Plan Act. So that was passed in March, and that provided tax credits for paid leave through September 30th for employees seeking and recovering from the vaccine, or taking somebody else to get the shot, or helping them get through the side effects. You get real-time tax credits to offset these wages, but I'm unclear how the new executive order, it's actually a temporary standard, will affect this. I'm not sure if the tax credits will be extended. I'm not sure if those are over on September 30th, truly. Just not sure, but right now is a great time to get to encourage people to take paid leave to get vaccinated, because you can have the government cover those wages. The EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, says that you can ask an employee about vaccination status and even retain copies of their cards, but you cannot ask why or why not, why they're vaccinated or why they're not vaccinated. Now, again, this is guidance that's been up for 10 months now, 9 months now. But now that employers over 100 employees they basically have to ask about vaccination status. So if you have any employees who say you can't ask, you now have not only the EEOC, but now OSHA says you can. And you could be fined if you don't know the status of your employees. Retaining copies of their cards is absolutely acceptable. You obviously need to keep those in a secure location. But the key here is that you just don't want to uncover any medical information that might be protected and then get you into some hot water. So just don't ask why or why not at this point. You just need to understand that they're either yes vaccinated or no vaccinated. And then if you have 100 employees or more, then the not unvaxxed people will need to produce a weekly negative test. Now, this third one here has been around also for 9 months. The EEOC says that employers can require vaccinations as a condition of employment, or if you're not willing to go that route, you can offer incentives. So all summer long, we've been talking about this incentives and the pros and cons of a incentive program and a mandatory vaccination policy versus encouraged. And now, as of yesterday, it's even more sort of strengthened, this condition of employment piece. So of course there will be lawsuits against the DOL and the federal government. So we'll have to see what happens with those, but for now, this is going forward. So it will be a condition of employment unless they want to produce a weekly negative test. And just a reminder that current CDC guidance says that even fully vaccinated individuals should wear masks indoors in high transmission areas, which now cover more than 92% of US counties. So if you look at a world map of high transmission areas, the entire United States is bright red. So, there might be some areas that are medium transmission at this point or low transmission, but for the most part, high transmission areas are now nationwide. So that said, everybody's dusting off their mask policies and further incentivizing or flat out requiring people to be vaccinated. If you don't have policies in place, you should consider drafting some. We have on our website, we have let me just skip ahead real quick. On our website, we have these types of sample policies. We have a voluntary mask policy, mandatory, and then the vaccination policy, voluntary and mandatory, and then the religious accommodation and disability accommodation request forms for the vaccination policies. And those are, if somebody can produce a physician authorized reason why they should not get the vaccine, that's what they could use that request form for. And then if they have a bona fide religious objection to the vaccine, which is the more difficult one, to be honest. I mean, there's no doctor that can sign off on that one. It's just, and I've seen a bunch of these come in for one of my clients, and the responses sort of are all over the place, but those forms are up there. So what I would do is make a copy, make sure everybody signs it off on it, make a copy, put it in their personnel file, and then have them take a weekly, produce a negative test and mask up on the work site. Okay, Anonymous asks, do you have the link for the EEOC stating employer can ask vaccination status, but not ask why or why not? I can hunt that down. I'm sharing my screen and I'm flying solo today, so I don't have it right this second, but I'll tell you what, so the EEOC has a COVID FAQ page. I know that it's section K on that page, so it's kind of, you have to scroll down a little bit. I don't have the URL right at the tip of my fingertips here, but we'll get that out to you if you can't find it, or we'll put it on our website. But yes, I mean, I know you guys have employees out there who have misinformation. And so whatever we can do to help you clear that up, please let us know. All right, skipping back. If you are with us in terms of your payroll processing, you can use iSolve to help track your vaccination rates among your employees. There's no COVID section of iSolve. So what we did was we decided to put that the certification area would be the best place to track this. So you would add COVID vaccination as a certification in the client management, HR management area. And then on the employee side, they can upload a picture of their vaccination card to their employee documents in their employee self-service portal, or managers can upload the cards for their direct reports, either way. Once the cards are uploaded, and the manager, I believe, has to go in and mark the certification under employee management human resources certification. And that, if you do it that way, that you can run a report of all the people who have that particular certification. It's a little, and as with everything iSolve, there are 2 steps to it. So if you get confused, or if this slide doesn't do it for you, email customer service at dominionpayroll.com and we'll get that set up for you. More and more of our clients are doing that. And it's just a really good way to track your vaccination rates and run a report for management to see what your overall vaccination rate is. And now, and given yesterday's announcement, you might need that more than ever to see actually not even just the rate, but who is vaccinated and who's not, so that you can be in compliance. Okay, and I believe that is the end today of my actual slides. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I suspect we will be back here again either next week or the week after with updates on yesterday's announcement and more labor market updates. Hopefully this has been helpful for you today. We have some in-house recruiters on our staff that are experiencing similar issues. And we're just, right there with you, trying to retain our employees, keep our culture strong, keep everybody feeling good and compensated, but also attract some folks who will be a good fit, but not only just a good fit, but somebody who's going to stay with us and be a creative, adaptive, flexible person. So one thing I did hear one of my recruiters say recently is that they're now asking during the interview process what has been the most challenging / rewarding part of the pandemic for you, the applicant. How did you deal with it? What lessons have the pandemic taught you, et cetera? So weaving some of those questions in you might be able to suss out the applicants who truly are able to be nimble and flexible and creative when it comes to navigating these waters. So just a thought. I don't know if that would work for your particular industry, but I have heard those questions come up now. So as always, we're all entering another phase of this pandemic. I wish you all the very best. Have a wonderful weekend. We will let you know when the next webinar is. And if you have another question after we sign off today, send it to questions@dominionpayroll.com and we'll get that EEOC link out to on our website this afternoon. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Stay safe.